Welcome back, all you awakened savages. And today's video is probably the most important video I've done, especially if you're a father. Now, today I'm going to focus on our sons raising kings, and then the next video I'll focus on our daughter and raising the queens. See, I'm so grateful and lucky to actually be a father and to have a son and a daughter. But when I look back over my life, I wasn't always the best father. I had to learn the hard way, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and I still do to this day. But every single day, my main goal is to be the best father I can be because I believe that is part of my purpose. Right? There's a reason that you feel that weight on your shoulders as a father. And this isn't just about paying bills or keeping your boy out of trouble. It's about legacy. It's about that fire, that wisdom, that strength, that courage that you pass down through your bloodline, whether you know it or not. See, every man is shaped by his father, by his presence or his absence, his love or his silence, his wisdom or his confusion. And I heard a saying that will stick with me forever. It said, your children might fail to listen to you, but they will never fail to emulate you. See, you're not just raising a boy, you're shaping a soul. Right? They grow up searching for answers, in the dark, trying to figure out what it means to be a man, piecing together fragments from movies, coaches, friends, whatever else the world throws at them. Right? But a boy's destiny is shaped by the man who fathers him. Right? Or for the unfortunate ones who doesn't father him because they're absent one way or another. I'm not just talking through advice, but through example, energy, and the courage to show up when the fucking shit hits the fan. Every choice you make, every word you speak, every wound you heal or ignore, that will ripple out not just through your son's life, but through the generations that you'll never meet. Right? This is the real spiritual inheritance. Your son will not only inherit your name and your habits, but the energy that you bring to life, the courage, the shame, the wisdom, the confusion. Right? Your presence or your absence becomes the blueprint for his manhood. Right? And this is a silent epidemic among men today. Right? A generation lost in the gap between childhood and manhood. Right? Raised by fathers who were never truly initiated themselves. Every boy is born with a longing for initiation, a hunger for someone to call him up, to show him what it means to stand as a man in this world. And unfortunately, most never get it. This is not just a cultural crisis, this is a spiritual one. Because uninitiated boys become ungrounded men, drifting from one identity to the next, haunted by unspoken questions like, am I even good enough? Do I have what it takes? Will anyone bring out that king in me? Right, you can see it in your son's eyes when he looks at you for direction, for boundaries, for strength, for blessing. He's not just looking for approval, he's looking for a map, he's looking for initiation. Right, for a father who sees his spirit, not just his behaviour. Your job isn't to raise a prince who expects life to serve him. Your job is to raise a king who learns to serve, protect, and lead with both power and heart. This work right here, right now, this will carry out for generations to come. Right? The father's burden isn't just heavy, it's your sacred calling. But see the reward when you show up fully, vulnerably, fiercely. You don't just raise a son, you awaken a king. And that is the greatest legacy you will ever leave. And see that changes everything, your family, your lineage, and the world your son will one day lead. See, for most of human history, every boy knew this truth, that one day he would leave the world of children and be tested. He would face fear, discomfort, pain, and doubt, not as punishment, but as passage. Initiation was not optional. It was the law of the tribe, the village, the clan. Right? Men would gather fathers, uncles, elders. They would strip away the old stories, the childish masks, and guide you through a challenge that showed you what you were truly made of. Right? You learned how to suffer with dignity, how to face the unknown, how to take responsibility for your own soul. Right? You learned most of all that you were not alone, that you belonged to a brotherhood, a tribe, that you were guided by men who had walked this path before. But today, fucking hell, most boys never get this rite of passage. Our culture has forgotten what initiation is for, right? Instead of tests that build character, boys are tested by screens, by peer pressure, by the world that tells them to be a man, but gives no map, right? We celebrate independence, but leave boys isolated, right? Idolize success, but never teach them how to fail. right? We confuse comfort for care, protecting boys from pain until life throws them into a fucking chaos with no preparation. And the result? Boys drift into manhood without ever feeling truly initiated or what it takes to be a man. Right? They chase thrills, status, or escape, addicted to video games, porn, substances, or endless fucking distractions, all searching for a sense of purpose, worth, and identity. And biologically, the consequences are fucking brutal, right? Initiation, see that triggers a real physical transformation, right? Ritual challenge, pain, fear, exertion, that spikes testosterone and growth hormone, right? Wiring the brain for risk, resilience, responsibility, right? Facing the wild, hunting, fasting, climbing, enduring hardship, that signal to a boy's nervous system that you are no longer a child. The world needs you to fucking wake up. Right, without rights, modern boys experience a kind of hormonal and neurological arrest. Right? Testosterone plummets. Now, the average 18-year-old has lower testosterone than his fucking grandfather at 60. Right? Dopamine gets hijacked by digital highs, screens, porn, endless scrolling. And this short circuits motivation and drive. Right, so instead of hunting for food or purpose, boys hunt for the next quick fix. Right, leaving their bodies restless, anxious, numb. And psychologically, initiation isn't just about toughness, right? It's about facing fear, failure, and the uncertainty in the presence of older men. Right? A boy learns that pain doesn't mean he's alone or broken. Right? He learns to fail, but then he learns to rise, to contribute, to hold ground when everything inside of him wants to fucking run. Without this, shame will fester. He becomes the nice guy, right? Pleasing, performing, always, anxious to be enough. Or the lost boy, right? Angry, entitled, afraid to connect. Right? The missing rights leaves this fucking hole in his psyche. Who will call me a man? Right? What am I supposed to do with all this power? Who will teach me how to use it for good? Right? And spiritually, initiation isn't just about becoming a man for yourself. It's about stepping into your place in the tribe, honoring your ancestors, carrying the wisdom and the wounds of those who came before you. Every sacred culture saw this as a spiritual contract. Right? A boy's spirit is called forth through challenge and blessing. Without that, a boy wanders the world looking for meaning, trying to prove themselves through risk, conquest, self-destruction, never knowing that real power comes from belonging, not fucking bravado. Right? The loss of right isn't just a social issue, it's a soul wound. Right? The cost is everywhere. Addiction, anxiety, rage, apathy, broken relationships, men who never truly step into their power, their mission. But see this invitation, right? You can reclaim that right. You can become the father who initiates, not by perfection, but by presence, courage, and blessing. Right? See the future of your son and your lineage. It depends on you. Okay, and let's look at some of the foundations of building that king. Right? What every boy needs from his father. Okay, the first one is boundaries. Right? Boundaries are the invisible line that shape a boy's world. Right? They're not about control, they're about safety, self respect, and clarity. Right? Boys instinctively test boundaries because they need to know where the edge is. Right? When the rules change or enforcement is inconsistent, they feel unsafe, unloved, or unseen. A clear boundary says, I care enough to keep you safe, even if it makes you angry. Right? So set rules at bedtime, screen time, respect in the home, and hold these rules. Right? Calmly and firmly. Don't over explain or bargain. When a boundary is crossed, deliver consequences without anger or humiliation. Right? For example, your son ignores curfew. Right? Instead of shouting, right, you sit him down, explain the risk, and calmly enforce the consequence. Right? Maybe you ground him for a week or a day, right? Or he loses a privilege. Right? He's upset, yeah. But see underneath, he knows you mean what you say and he matters enough for you to stand strong. Right? And the second one is challenge. Right? A boy grows through healthy struggle, physical challenges, mental puzzles, social risks. If life is too easy, he will never find his edge. Right? Because challenge triggers growth hormone, right? Resilience and confidence. It teaches that discomfort is not to be avoided. Right? It's a sign that you're leveling up. So give him jobs that stretch him, chores, sports, hikes, right? Tell him to fix things around the house or learn a new skill. Don't solve his problems for him. Let him wrestle with difficulty, even if he stumbles. Right, for example, right, he's trying to build a model car, he's getting fucking frustrated. Instead of taking over, right, just sitting next to him, offer him some encouragement, but let him fail. Let him try again and let him finally figure it out. The pride in his eyes will be real because he knows that I've earned this shit. Right, number 3, validation. Validation is not empty praise. It's seeing and naming effort, courage, character, not just results. Right? Without real validation, boys either become perfectionists who can never relax or give up thinking nothing they do matters. Right? Validation builds that inner voice that says, I am enough even when I struggle. Right? So look for moments where he does try. Right? Whether he wins or loses. Right? It's just saying things like, you kept your cool when it got tough, good on you, son. Or, I noticed you helped your sister without being asked. Right? Or an example, he's just lost a big game at football. Right? Instead of focusing on the loss, just say, you didn't give up and you shook the other kid's hand after the game. That's real sportsmanship. He will stand taller knowing you see the man he's becoming, not just the stats. Okay, number 4, vulnerability. Right? Vulnerability means showing your real self, your fears, your doubts, your regrets. It's not weakness, it's the foundation of emotional strength. Right? When a father pretends to be perfect, a boy learns to hide his own struggles. When a father is real, a boy learns it's safe to feel, safe to heal, and safe to ask for help. Right? So share your own stories. Right? How you were scared at his age. Right? The mistakes that you made, the things that you wish you'd done differently. Right? Apologize when you fuck up. Ask for forgiveness. This is something that I've dealt with, not that long ago. Right? You lose your temper and you yell. Later, you go to your son and you say, I'm sorry, that wasn't right. I was stressed and I took it out on you. I'm so sorry, son, I love you. Right? He learns strength isn't about never messing up. It's about owning your stuff and making it right. Okay, number 5, brotherhood. Right? Brotherhood is the sense of belonging to a tribe. Right? Trusted men and boys who offer challenge, support, and hold each other accountable. Right? A boy alone is vulnerable to peer pressure, loneliness, and negative influences. A brotherhood teaches him to serve, right? Compete honourably and learn from others. So involve him in healthy groups, gym sessions, martial arts, scouts, your brotherhood, a circle of good men. Organise father-son activities with other families. Right? Just start small, right? And then build it out. Or even start a small rite of passage group, for your friends and their sons. Right? Or you could take him camping with a group of dads, and their sons. You sit around the fire, share stories about fear, courage, growth. Because when you do that, he realises, listen, I'm not alone. Other boys and men struggle too, and together, you're going to get stronger. Okay, number 6, legacy. Legacy is a sense of purpose and connection to something bigger than yourself. A family, right? Tradition, values, mission. Right? Boys without legacy drift. Boys with legacy stand tall, knowing that their life matters and their actions ripple outwards. So tell him about your ancestors, the family values, and your own dreams and regrets. Involve him in service, helping neighbours, volunteering, or creating something lasting together. Right? You could just, build a small garden or do a charity project as a family. Right? Talk about why it matters. Not just for you, but for future generations. Because he will begin to see himself as a link in the chain, someone who can shape the future, not just for him, but for other people. Right? The reality is these foundations aren't just checkboxes, right? They are the soil in which a king grows. Build them, one act at a time, and you give your son a path that no man or culture can ever take away from him. And if you compare it to the ancient traditions, right? Long before modern society, every culture understood that boys are not born men, they must become men. So they crafted rites of passages, sometimes fierce, but always meaningful. So a boy would face his limits and return transformed. Right? The Spartan Agoge, right? In ancient Sparta, boys left the home at about 7 for Agoge, right? That's a brotherhood of training, challenge, hardship. Right? They learned discipline, courage, service. Success wasn't about survival, but about becoming a man who could serve the city and stand unbroken by fear. Right? And then we look at the Lakota vision quest. Young men in Lakota tradition would enter the wilderness, fast alone for days, and seek guidance from spirit and ancestors. This wasn't just a test of endurance, it was a quest for purpose. A boy became a man when he returned with a vision for his people, not just for himself. And if you look at the samurai father-son rituals, right, in Japan, samurai fathers taught sons Bushido, the way of the warrior, right? Training included martial arts, poetry, tea ceremonies, meditation. Right, a samurai boy learned that true strength was measured by honor, composure, and service, not by dominance, but by self-mastery. And even look in the Jewish bar mitzvah, they still do that to this day. At 13, Jewish boys become accountable for their actions, publicly welcomed as men in the community. Right? The right centers on responsibility, tradition, connection, grounding boys in values and collective identity. Then you've got the African and Aboriginal initiations. Right? Many tribes led boys through physical ordeals, circumcision, wilderness survival. These trials marked the end of childhood and the start of service, manhood, and that spiritual kinship. Now, what do all these rites have in common? They have challenge, right? Every rite pushed a boy to the edge. Fear, pain, the unknown. Witness, men gathered, right? The boy's struggle and courage were seen, honoured, and remembered. Meaning, initiation was never just personal. It's connected to the boy's purpose, his lineage, and his community. And blessing, every boy received a blessing, welcomed by men who said, "You belong, you have what it takes, you are one of us now." So, how can you adapt this today? Right? Create a rite of passage for your son. It doesn't need to be a survival ordeal. It could be a camping trip, right? An athletic challenge, a solo journey, a service project, something real, memorable, and demanding. Witness his struggle, right? Bring mentors, friends, elders. Let your son be seen as he overcomes his challenge. And mark the moment. Give him a token, a letter, a family ritual, a clear sign that he has crossed the threshold. And speak the blessing. Look him in his eyes. Tell him what you see. Name his strength. Call out the king in him. Every culture once did this. The world has changed, but the need has not. As a father, you can revive this ancient power, not just for your son, but for every single generation that follows. Okay, and let's look at some tools for the father toolbox, some modern practices for raising our kings. Right? You don't need to live in the jungle or train a boy for battle, but you do need tools, rituals, and practice that ground him, challenge him, and call the king out within him. Right? So the first one, okay, the initiation conversation. Every boy needs to hear about manhood, not just from the TV or friends, but from his father. Open the door for honest talk about fear, failure, sex, anger, and the path of a good man. So choose a private moment, maybe a road trip, right? A campfire, a walk, and ask him, what does being a man mean to you? Right? Share your own journey, your struggles, your lessons, your victories, your regrets, right? Your failures, right? You could just say to your son, listen, let's go for a fishing trip, right? Take him away from distractions and just share the hardest lessons that you've learned about integrity. Ask about his dreams, his worries, what kind of man he wants to be. When you do that, he feels seen, and then the real talk will begin. Okay, number two, the challenge ritual, right? This is a physical or mental challenge that marks a passage from boy to young man. He needs to do something hard, right? Alone or witnessed, right? He needs to do this to discover his own strength. So set up some type of rite, a solo bike hike, right? A public speaking performance, a 24-hour digital fast, building something from scratch, right? Support, but don't rescue. Witness the process, right? It could be, for example, he signs up for a 10K, right? So he's training for this 10K run. He struggles. He wants to quit, but you run beside him, encouraging him, and then you celebrate him when he's finished. Right? You mark that moment with a meal, a gift, or a family story. Okay, number three, the king's table. Right, this is a weekly ritual where a family or a group of men gather to eat, right, share stories and discuss challenges. Because food plus presence equals belonging. So, depending on the size of your family, right? So once a week, it could be just you and your son, right? Phones off, TV off. You sit down, you share your wins, your struggles, and your lessons for the week, right? You're there to model honesty, humility, and support. Right, or it could just even be a Sunday dinner. Each week you go round the table, one thing that you've learned, one thing that you're grateful for, one thing that you want to work on, right? Your son hears, you being real, right? He learns that kingship is about service, not about ego. Okay, number 4, the father-son adventure, right? Adventure builds connection and trust. Nature, travel, challenges that break the routine. This is where memories are made and boys can see their fathers in a new light. Right, go camping, hiking, road tripping, or travel somewhere new. Make it a yearly tradition if you can. Right, for example, you and your son go and spend a weekend in the wild. Get the map out, navigate the map with a compass, building a fire, telling stories under the stars. Right, he sees your resourcefulness and his own as well. You both return changed. Okay, number 5, right? The service, the mission day. Right? Service roots a boy in humility, gratitude, and a sense of impact. Right? Kings serve first. So together choose a way to help, volunteer, helping a neighbour, supporting a cause. Right? For example, every Saturday you go and give a few hours helping families in need. You talk about what real wealth and contribution mean. He learns that strength exists in uplifting up others. Okay, number 6, modeling emotional mastery. I cannot express how important this is. Boys learn how to handle anger, stress, love, and grief by watching their fathers. Let them see you breathe through frustration, apologize, forgive, and ask for help. Right, for example, you lose your temper, but instead of blaming, you cool off and you come back, and you own that mistake. You show him that kingship is about self mastery, not perfection. Right? The reality is, tools don't replace love, they express it. Every practice, no matter how simple, becomes a seed that will grow in your son for the rest of his life. You don't need it to be perfect. You just need to show up and use what you have again and again and again. Okay? Because raising a son isn't just a job, it's a spiritual contract, right? Your relationship with your son is not random, right? It's a product of a soul agreement made long before you met in this life, right? Universal law says, as above, so below. What you embody, your son inherits, not just genetics, but your energy, your beliefs, and the unspoken wounds, right? Law of example. Your son doesn't become what you say, he becomes what you are, your presence, your integrity, your capacity, feel, lead, love, right? If you heal, grow, and serve, he will also. Right, law of resonance. Your energy sets a tone in your home. If you walk in anger, he absorbs that. If you walk in peace and purpose, he finds that resonance, something before he understands what it means. Right, law of transmutation. Right, old woods can be transformed. When you choose to do the work, break cycles, speak the hard truths, offer blessings, you don't just change yourself, you change the energetic inheritance you pass on. Right, your healing becomes his freedom. Right? See, this is the thing. You can't give your son what you haven't claimed for yourself. Every unhealed wound, every fear you run from, every mask you wear, your son will feel it, even if you never say a word. That's why raising a king always begins with the king in the mirror. So ask yourself, were you ever initiated? Right? Where do you still feel like a lost boy searching for the blessing or direction? Right? You don't need to have it all figured out. What matters is that you're willing to do the work, to be honest about what hurts, and to grow right alongside your son. Right? Maybe you grew up with a father who never discussed his feelings, so you've learned to bottle up all the pain, right? To perform for approval or to disappear when shit gets hard. But see, now you choose differently. You choose to sit with the discomfort, to ask for help, to admit when you're scared or angry, and to choose to repair instead of run. You let your son see in the process you're not perfect, but present, courageous, and you're fucking real. Right? Boys don't just need fathers who have it together. They need fathers who are honest about the work, the struggle, and the journey. When you face your wounds, you give your son permission to face his. When you own your story, you free him from his own. Right? The legacy isn't perfection, it's transformation. Be the king who looks in the mirror, does the work, and invites his son to do the same. Right? That's the foundation of a dynasty that can fucking last forever. Right? So here's your field mission for you. This week, right, choose one of the following or all of them, right? Have the initiation conversation. Find an hour, just you and your son. No distractions. Ask him what manhood means, right? Share what it means to you and listen, really listen, right? Share a story of your own struggle, right? Not just your victories. Or create a challenge ritual, right? Pick a physical, mental, or emotional test, something that will stretch you both. Train for it together. Let your son see you sweat, struggle, celebrate. Start a weekly King's Table. Right, once a week, share a meal, just you and your son. Right, phones down. Right, stories up. right? Just share one thing that you're proud of, one thing that you're working on, one lesson you've learned this week. Okay? Bring your own healing journey into this. Identify one area where you're still carrying pain from your father or your upbringing. Take one step, right? Journaling, therapy, honest conversation, or simply naming the wound, right? And sharing it with your son. Right? Share your mission in the comments. Right? What did you do? What happened? What did you learn about yourself and your son through this whole process? Right? If you're ready to go deeper, right, check the description for the Awakened Savage Brotherhood. This is still a work in progress. I have started the community, but I haven't invited anyone yet. So you'll have my Facebook Messenger if you're interested, or you can email me for those who don't have Facebook. This is a place where men are going to come together, right? So we can raise our kings, heal our wounds, and build legacies that last. Because remember, a king leads by example. Right? The real rite of passage is the one that you choose to walk today. Not next week, not next month, today. Right? Fatherhood isn't just what you do, it's the legacy that you leave behind. Every conversation, every boundary, every moment of vulnerability is a seed you plant in your son's spirit. You're not raising a boy to fit a broken world, you're raising a king who can help heal it. Right? The work that you do, the wounds that you face, the challenges you create, the love that you offer, that will fucking ripple out far beyond your home. Right now, you stand at a crossroads of generations. You are the bridge between the ancestors who dreamed of a better life and the son who will fucking build it. No man gets this perfect, but every man can choose to begin right here, right now. So this is your blessing. Right? May you have the courage to lead with heart, the strength to stand in your truth, the wisdom to know when to listen, and the humility to say, I don't have all the answers, but you know what? I'm never going to stop showing up. Right? May your son see through your example. Right? The greatness is created not by dominance, by its service, integrity, and love. And may you both walk this path together, not as a perfect father and a perfect son, but as two kings, each learning, growing, and blessing the world in your own way. This is your legacy. This is your initiation. This is how you raise kings. Let's walk this path together. Right? If this message hit home, drop a comment below. What's one thing you're going to do differently for your son starting today? And if you found any value from this, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video with another father, son, or brother who desperately needs it. Okay, and as always, I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. I truly appreciate every comment, every like, every single interaction you have with me. So thank you, because you are helping me create my legacy, and I just want to help you create yours. So thank you. I love you guys. Take care. And remember, no father walks alone in this road, right? We learn, we grow, and we build this legacy together. Okay, so another video here, and you can subscribe here. Take care.